Hey guys, welcome back to Lyman Customs. Today is September 11th, 2025. It is the anniversary of the 9/11 terror attacks that happened in New York and our nation's capital, along with the plane in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, 24 years ago. As I'm sure you're probably aware, yesterday, political spokesperson Charlie Kirk was assassinated at a college in Utah while he was giving a speech and doing his, what I call a roundtable debate. He'd invite people up to a microphone, and they could ask questions, and he would answer them, and they could debate back and forth on anything. I mean, no subject was really like off the, was off the charts to be able to talk about. They talk about anything from, gun violence, gun control, abortion, education, the economy, finances, I mean, you name it, Christianity, they talk about anything and stuff, abortion, and he would, express his views, and people could express theirs, and he would try to change people's views based on facts, and, there's some really good videos out there, Unfortunately, some coward decided to climb up on a roof, rather than come down and take the microphone and ask some questions and have a civil discourse that way. Decided to climb up on a roof and assassinate him. And that's exactly what it was. It was an assassination. It was political, motivated. I mean, they're trying to shut him up. They don't like what he has to say. And rather than just, not listen to him or change a channel or just not go to his events, no. Someone decided to take it upon themselves to kill him, to murder him, to keep, him from being able to say what he wants to say. Now, our country was founded on the whole idea of the First Amendment. That was, the first being freedom of speech is first for a reason, because it is that important. It was that important to our founders. You'll see political pundits and people on the left say, there's freedom in all these countries and stuff, and other than maybe just a few select ones. Is there though? I don't think there is. I got friends that live in the UK. It's to the point now, that they gotta be careful what they say, what they post on social media, because, at best, some sort of law enforcement shows up, a Bobby shows up on their doorstep, and they get written a ticket, they get a citation for saying stuff. Worse, they get arrested. Their news can't report, stuff going on, and they have no recourse. Let's go into the second thing, because I know where this is going. It's going to be, the calls are going to be coming to disarm, gun confiscation, gun bans, gun control, gun control, gun control. They give up their gun rights over there. I mean, they have nothing, they can't really say much. They have no way to, remind the government that it's, government of the people. So the United States really is, probably the last free country in the entire world when you talk about absolute freedom. The people that complain about this country don't leave. They're free to leave. They could all leave if they want to, but they don't. You got these celebrities, you got people that, say they hate America. Why are you here then? I don't understand that. Thing is, if they went to their home countries and tried saying that sort of stuff, they'd probably be executed, honestly. If they complained about their own countries. But no populace in human history that has given up their firearms or disarmed has it ever gone well for them. It started in the 1930s and stuff. If you look at that with, Jews over, in Austria and Poland and stuff, when the Nazis came to power, first thing they did was take away their gun rights. And slowly by slowly took away their property rights, took away their voting rights, took away their jobs, so what jobs they could have, and then they started taking away any of their money, and it just, it was a slippery slope, and that has happened time and time again. South Dakota, I love this state, I love my country, I'm a veteran, I'm a patriot, but South Dakota had one of the worst, massacres in the history of our country. Happened here in my state, Wounded Knee. Right after, the Lakota Sioux had given up their firearms and stuff, they got massacred by the U.S. military. The U.S. government went in and men, women, and children, just slaughtered them by the hundreds. And that happened. It wasn't that long ago. We seem to think that this was ancient history. And granted, it's been over 100 years, but it's not that long ago. You know, this thing with Charlie Kirk, though, is just, it's a lightning rod. It really is. You know, the whole idea is we need to be able to get back to be able to have discussions with one another and have differences of opinion without resorting to violence, without name calling, without, you know, if I disagree with you on something, you know, that's perfectly okay. It doesn't mean I don't like you. It doesn't mean I don't hate you. There's a lady that I worked with at my job for many years and stuff, and she was as opposite to the spectrum as I am, you know, on our political views and everything else. You know, we'll leave it at that. But we got along great. We're still friends. You know, we could joke around and laugh and stuff when we had differences of opinion on stuff, but we could still get along. We could still work. We could still be professional. We could still, you know, be around each other. And there was no ill will towards each other. There's no hatred, no anything, no animosity. We need to get back to that. And something has shifted. And, you know, you know, we need to start calling evil what it is. And we need to start standing up to evil. You know, evil exists, you know, whether we like it or not, but it's allowed to perpetuate and get bad when good men stand by and do nothing. You know, people always ask, well, you know, how come, you know, 6 million Jews were murdered in the Holocaust? Because good people just stood by and didn't do anything. And it's the same today. You know, there's evil out there, but people are afraid. They don't want to be labeled, you know, a racist or, you know, a bigot or a sexist or misogynist or, I mean, some phobia. Pick your phobia, you know. People are afraid of being labeled with something, so they don't speak out against stuff that is wrong, that is evil, that goes against what our societal norms are. And we're told that if we do say that, then we're in the wrong. You know, nowadays you just, you know, magically pretend to be whatever it is you want, and everybody's supposed to go along with your views and stuff. That's not how it works. That's not reality. You know, all these other countries out there are laughing at us. You know, and you know, you look at the young lady. You know, all she wanted to do is she got away from the Ukraine. You know, war and violence over there. Wanted to come to America for a safe life. Just want to live her life. You know, went to her job, got off work, was just going home, riding a bus down in Charlotte, North Carolina, and some evil piece of shit monster, you know, that's what he is. Let's not pretend, you know, stabbed her for no reason. No reason, just want to kill her. You know, this is somebody that an activist judge, yet again, let him out and stuff. I mean, he has a rap sheet, had like 14 priors. You know, this guy should have been serving the rest of his life in a cell, you know. Hopefully he gets a death penalty on this, you know. Who knows? Again, activist judges, you know, he might only get 5 years, you know, but stuff like that, you know, evil. And people sat by. People sat on the bus, didn't do anything. Didn't do anything. The young lady died. Nobody tried to intervene. Nobody tried to stop him. Nobody, you know. I'm not going to say that, you know, the world is horrible, but you got to be aware. You got to be aware that there is evil out there. You can't pretend that it isn't. Believe it or not, we do, even with all the violence that gets reported, we do live in the safest, most prosperous time in the history of civilization. We really do. You look back, you know, all the different empires that have fought one another, the Roman Empire and the British Empire and the Mongolians. And I mean, you go back through history and stuff, it's been fighting and wars and killing one another. And they'd come and kill all the men and rape the women. And, you know, you look at all the stuff that's been going on throughout human history. We are in the safest, most prosperous time. The difference is now something happens on the other side of the country or the planet. We hear about it instantly. Heard about the Charlie Kirk getting shot in Utah, and the videos were posted before they even declared him dead. I mean, that's how fast it was. I mean, it went viral that fast. That's what's changed. So, you know, news stations try to hype this stuff up because it gets views, it gets ratings and stuff, it gets clicks. You know, but don't buy into that. You know, but we need to start standing up as a nation for what we believe in, what this country means, you know, and don't let them use this incident to try to disarm people and pass more gun controls. Guess what? Criminals still have guns. They always will. They're criminals. They're not going to follow the law. You know, only people that are going to obey the law are law-abiding people that you're going to have a problem with in the first place. So, I guess that's it. Didn't want to get too dark on this video. You know, prayers to Charlie Kirk's family. his wife and children and everybody else. Hopefully they find the SOB that did this, and like the governor of Utah said, they still have the death penalty there. So hopefully they can find him, and this guy will pay for what he did. But yeah, I guess just we got to get back to being willing to have differences of opinion without resorting to violence. I guess that's what makes our country great. And Charlie Kirk being assassinated, I guess it's probably my generation's deal of like Martin Luther King being assassinated or Bobby Kennedy being assassinated. To me, it's on that level. It's something that is polarizing the entire nation. And just like 9/11 was my generation's Pearl Harbor, this will probably be the similar to either Martin Luther King or Bobby Kennedy being assassinated. But yeah, so I wish everybody the best. Wish everybody peace. Stay vigilant. Keep your eyes open. Pay attention to what's going around you. Be willing to speak out. There's people that can't do that anymore. So, if you have something to say, please do so. Speak out. Let's get back to be able to have discussions and share ideas, and that's how we grow as a nation, as a people, as civilization, by being able to have debates and seeing different points of view and having conversation. We need to get back to having conversations, and rather than just screaming and yelling and calling each other names. We need to get back to that. So, yeah. So we'll get back to the next one. Next one we'll get back to doing some more car stuff. But for now, keep Charlie and his family and everybody in your thoughts, and we'll see you next time.